Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and wow, I mean, yes, it's Christmas Eve 2017, but it's already the start of the 2018 Eurovision season. We've had a couple of names tossed around already, but our first actual tried and true song comes to us, more or less as usual, from the lovely Albania, courtesy of Festivalikungas number... Oh, I really should have looked this up beforehand. I'll just put it on screen. Loving the new logo, RTSH, by the way. It's very, modern. Anyway, the Albanian, well, I would say the public, but actually it was the juries. The Albanian juries have chosen Mr. Eugent Bushpepa. Hello there, Tess Editing here. I've just found out that his name is actually pronounced Eugent, not Eugent. I thought I knew Albanian, and apparently I don't. So prepare your ears for a lot of mispronouncing in this review. Sorry. And the song Mal, which means yearning in English. It's currently performed in Albanian, but we suspect that might change when the contest happens. We don't know for certain just yet. Also, music and lyrics by Eugent Bushpepa himself, so this is entirely a personal passion project, and I salute that right out of the gate. So, yeah, we don't know for certain if it's going to be kept in Albanian. This seems like the sort of song that would be kept in Albanian, but I don't know. We do know for certain that a revamp is more or less inevitable, or at the very least there will be a Eurovision mix that is different from the Festivalikungas version. But let's just get started on my review, shall we? Because I've made you wait several months for me to get back into this, so let's just go. So my first impressions of the song... Right, well, the first thing that I noticed with this one, right away, was just how strong and compelling the beat is. Not to mention how consistent it is throughout the song. So no matter what happens, you've got that strong, stirring, pounding rhythm to ground yourself in. And that's a cornerstone in the song's very stylized, very regional feel. I'm somewhat struggling to find the right words here, I admit. But to me, as a foreigner, I think personally it does sound very Albanian in its influences and execution, but I could be totally wrong with that, I am very much aware. Either way, I do applaud how they've gone about producing this song. I do sense a fair bit of potential in this one, more so than your average Festivalikungas graduate anyway, so let's dive a little bit deeper here. Okay, I'm changing up my format ever so slightly from previous years, so instead of good points or instead of what I like, I'm going to phrase it slightly differently, so it's all on you whether you agree with me or not, okay? So, good points slash what I like slash what you might like. See what I did there? Okay. First up, it has to be said, this isn't just a song, it's a feeling. From the harmonies to the way the chorus is executed to the key and the delivery and the pretty much everything about this song evokes a feeling, or at least it does with me anyway. I know the title means yearning, but I don't really understand a word of the lyrics, apart from Fantasia, which, I mean, that's fairly obvious, I'd like to think. And yet, I get the distinct feeling of roughly what kind of story he's telling here. Of course, it helps quite a bit that Eugent delivers the song with great passion and conviction, which is something to be applauded unto itself. Some singers aren't too convincing when they sing, but with Eugent, it seems so obvious that he's giving this song everything he's got, and that pays off in no small way. And while we're talking about the passion that he brings to this song, I do have to applaud the role that vocals play in the song as a whole. As things currently stand, the vocals, both lead and backing, do the majority of the heavy lifting with this one, whether through delivering the lyrics, providing the vocalization after the refrain, or even just adding a couple of little rocky flourishes here and there. Admittedly, that is something of a double-edged sword, but as far as the live performance at FIK is concerned, he can certainly deliver on it. He's writing checks that his mouth certainly can cash. And all of the above lends so much to what is already a very atmospheric song with an infectious, anchoring beat that gives it an overall sense of strength, in every sense of the term, whilst still being emotive to listen to. There is work to be done when it comes to revamping it for Eurovision, but I feel as though it would take conscious effort to revamp it badly. I feel like this is one that starts off great and is only going to be more refined and perfected, and it'll just go from strength to strength by the time it reaches the stage in Lisbon. That said, I do acknowledge that in saying that, I'm actively highlighting that there are some points that you might want to see trimmed or adjusted in reaching that final form, or that I might, or... You see, I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible. So anyway, I would say that there's absolutely no shame in thinking that there's always room for improvements, and this song is no exception to that. As it currently stands, it's a fine piece of Albanian music for the Albanian music scene, but that doesn't necessarily carry over to a mass Eurovision appeal. What I'm getting at is, For a 4.5-minute song, it isn't all that dynamic. It doesn't go much places. That makes perfect sense. You know what I mean though, maybe? For what it's trying to do, it certainly does work, but I fear that some audience members at Eurovision may begin to lose interest after a while. Now don't get me wrong, the refrain is a brilliant payoff to the way the song builds up, and it's almost euphoric to listen to, no pun intended, but it does take a rather long time to make that build up. Some Euro fans simply won't have the patience for that, and whether that applies to you or not is entirely your choice. But this is all stuff that I believe was always going to be tweaked in the inevitable revamp anyway. Beyond that, I just want to observe that as part of my praise for Eugent's vocals, there are some rather tricky parts in there that could be worryingly easy for him to mess up live, and thus bring the song down in the public's estimation. At Festivalikungas, he absolutely nailed it flawlessly, it was fine, so I don't think there's any reason to realistically worry, but it is worth bearing in mind that that risk is there for the time being. I'm not saying remove it, I'm not saying take out anything risky, I'm just saying take care because that risk exists. Does that make sense? That being said, let's get back to a section of the review that I'm never going to get rid of as far as I can predict. My scores out of 10. Now, in case you've forgotten, or if you're new to my channel, I give each entry 2 scores out of 10. One for how much I personally like the song on a biased, personal, subjective level, and then a separate score for how much I think the song is good on a technical level. For my own personal score, I'm going to give Albania an 8 out of 10 for now. I'm excited for this one, I really am. I really do want to see where they go with this, because it's got an overwhelming amount of potential. And I know I say that every year, but this, more than ever, applies because of how relatively different it is to Albania's recent offerings. This is the first male singer since 2013, and it's of a different genre from what we're used to for Albanian entries. So it definitely is one to watch when they release the Eurovision ready version. I highly expect my score to go up when that time comes. As for my technical rating out of 10, which is always trickier to deliver, I openly admit, I'm honestly inclined to give it a 9. As I said before, as a piece of Albanian music to just put on and listen to, it's a good job, very well done, whether live or in the studio. The only thing holding it back for now is that slow burn factor that might make the song feel a bit stagnant to some people, but that's only if you're listening to it as a Eurovision entry as opposed to just as a song. So I have every faith that it will be polished up nicely in time for the contest. They do have some stuff that they can cut out and readjust. If they want to tweak the instrumentation, that's their prerogative. There's plenty that they could do, and I'm excited for how it's going to turn out. For the time being though, even as it currently stands, Albania's in very good stead, and I think they deserve credit for that. That being said, as of this year, I'm not going to do the whole compared to last year bit anymore. Last year it was just too hard to draw the line and say one song was better than another. So instead, I'm going to consider this year's song and the previous entry from each country and determine whether that country is heading in the right direction for Eurovision success. And with this song, I would say that, tentatively, yeah, Albania is definitely moving in the right direction. I'll be able to say for certain whether or not that's the case once we have the Eurovision ready version to judge, but for now, as a starting point, this is decently strong. I still think that Festivalikungas may not be the best vehicle for selecting Eurovision songs as a whole, though it's definitely a fine platform for selecting singers, but this year it certainly hasn't let its country down, so I'm inclined to say this is a good sign. We can expect good things from Albania in the future. But do I think that that's a sign that Albania will qualify? Well, naturally, because this isn't the song's final form, and because it's the first song of the year, it is truly impossible to say at this stage. However, I do think that 2018 is the best year for a song like this to take part, because after the 2017 contest, it is evident that the people of Europe and Australia, and perhaps even further overseas, are much more open to the prospect of trying a taste of other genres and languages that previously weren't considered marketable enough. So, while this song might have languished at 13th place or so about 5 years ago, here and now, I think it stands a legitimate shot at the final, in theory. But we'll have to wait and see what it's up against. I don't think it's an absolute winner as it currently stands, but that could all change by the time we get to May. I have faith in you, Albania, I really do. You have got a lot of untapped potential here. Just make sure that you do Do to this what you did to Besoy and not what you did to Fairy Tale. But let's just see what you can do when the time comes. I'll just leave you to your own devices. In the meantime, I have been and will continue to be Tessellating Hexagons, and Albania, I wish you the very best of luck when you get to Lisbon in May. See you then.